Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge, and all of our faithful followers and friends from around the world. We love you guys. The Church of Inclusion is always here for you. For those local in Washington, we have our church service on Thursday nights, tonight, in Marysville, over by the high school off of 51st Street. So if anybody ever wants to fellowship, we do a 6 o'clock to 7:15 meeting, and it's a potluck. We have a 20-minute message, which you're about to hear tonight. And if you want to fellowship and enjoy potluck and then watch the video with everybody, it's a wonderful time. And then there's exciting news that we're actually opening up two more locations for spiritual centers here in Snohomish County. So I'm very excited. And that's more to come about that later. But let's get into the message. So we're talking about King David lately, right? We're going through this whole um, life of his, understanding his journey through his life. My father used to call it the road to Zion, which was like the start of his learning to be a shepherd in the fields with a bunch of, poop, right? All around him, being the least important person in the family. um, Everything. It was a tough life, but you see these stages, and then he learns how to fight out there and fight bears, and now he becomes a tough, but he's a little guy, but he's a tough little guy, and then he gets anointed by Samuel to be the next king as a boy, right? He's a kid still. And then as a teenage boy, he goes and kills Goliath, and then the fame that comes with it, and then he becomes a warrior for the king. And he does all of that, and then at the end, of course, that was in the first book of Samuel in the Old Testament. If you're reading out of a Bible, and if you're of my Jewish followers, the book of Samuel, the books of Samuel, I should say, because there's two of them, talks about the first part of David's life, and now we're into the second part. I'm not going to read too much actually from the scriptures tonight, actually. I'm just telling you where we're at, so if you want to follow along in the story, it's the first few chapters of Samuel, the second book. And it's where David is in the caves of Adullam, like we talked about last week. But then what happened is Saul dies. And so all of a sudden, the tribe of Judah, because Israel as a whole is made up of 12 tribes, the original 12 brothers. And so the 12 tribes all have a king. Now, Judah was, Saul, of course, was their king. And then Saul was the king of all the tribes. And then what happened is when he died, David was now anointed in the city of Hebron. So he left the caves of Adullam with his strong men, and then he goes to the city of Hebron. Hebron's a very important place in this whole journey. In the beginning of the Bible, there's the patriarchs, as they refer to them: Isaac, Jacob, um, and Israel. These are patriarchs in the faith. Well, they're buried in Hebron along with their wives, and so the founding fathers of the you know Jewish faith and part of the Christian faith is in this place. So it's a very holy place. It was known as a refuge. One of the things that as I look back on my notes, and I'm just going through some of them, I was realizing that the city itself, in its own history, it actually was a place of refuge for many reasons. It was a great place to hold up when wars were going on because it was a very safe place. So that refuge was something that people loved. And so David goes to that city. Why didn't he just go to the city of Israel, right? Jerusalem, I'm sorry, to the city of Jerusalem, and just make it the capital of Israel. I mean, like, that's get it over with. You're the big guy. All 12 tribes are supposed to be yours anyways as the king. God already said so. It's in the prophet said it. Well, there's a reason. And it's not one I like. See, I'm not a patient person. I'm a person who just had one of his lights go out. I'm a person who likes to have things done and done fast. I do not like to wait around. And so when I was young and I had my ministry career take off and I started to travel the globe and I was speaking at 12,000 member audiences at churches and all that fun stuff, I didn't understand why. I was like, God, look, just let's cut the check. Have someone bring me a couple mil. I'll open the big building. We'll have the whole, show, man, and then the whole world will be changed. I'm the guy. I laugh because that guy was so talented and so knowledgeable and so full of greatness, but he was also full of a lot of other stuff. And one of it was just youth. It was a younger person, an inexperienced person. But wait, weren't you educated? Didn't matter if you're educated. You're still not experienced in applying what you learned in that school. You can go to seminary and get yourself a PhD and get out. I got friends who are PhDs and they don't have a dollar to pay their rent. I got friends who actually have more certificates and can't find a job. Like I got one person in the medical field that has I think it's 29 certificates and can't get one job. No one will hire this person. And I'm like, what's wrong with her? There's something. So you can have all the credentials in the world, and I figured it out. She never has done anything. She just kept getting degrees and certificates and degrees and certificates. And then she's got knowledge out of a book, but when you come out and read your book to people, that doesn't work in the real world. So David had to learn how to rule and reign. Rule and reign. Those are words people nowadays say. I don't like that word. You don't rule. No one rules me. Yeah, they do. I don't care where you're at in this country. The government rules you. And if you don't think they do, stop paying your taxes on your house and see how long you own that place. Even though it's fully paid off. It won't be long. They'll run the gamut. I think it's a year, then the taxes don't go, then a couple years go down, and bam. Next thing you know, you're being evicted by the sheriff, and you're out. All your money you paid, gone. So you are ruled, and there is people who rule our lives on a daily basis. If we work for people, they rule our life in respect of our job. And that word's not a bad thing. It's been made to be a bad thing. Let me tell you something. When I'm building this next building that I'm going to build, I want someone that's very smart to rule over me, that knows what they're doing. Yeah, I'm the owner and the guy writing the checks, and I'm the one telling them what I want. But I need the architect and the builder to actually do their job to make sure it's safe. And so I want them to rule and reign over this. So David had to understand how to be a king. How do you become a king, a president? How do you run an effective family? How do you run a relationship between you and your roommate? How do you have a friendship or rule your relationships with people instead of friendships? Let's use them as relationships, because sometimes coworkers aren't friends, but we have relationships with them. We have to work with this person day in and day out. So we have to learn how to rule ourselves in our emotions, in our spiritual aspect, in our physical aspect, so that we don't let people think we're angry, even though right now I'm probably angry at them. I know I need to breast my cards. It's like when you're playing poker, people that have the cards out like this, like, oh yeah, and everyone can see it. You got to breast them. That means you hold them close to your chest. Breast your cards. So, you got to have your emotions in check, but if you don't, you got to have your physical body in check so people aren't watching you. And if you don't understand that, just like the other light went out, and as I get frustrated, there's no one to get frustrated at. The person who I would have asked to do it is not here. So who did it? I did. Who failed? I did. So why be angry about it? Control your emotions. But I could have not said any of that to anybody, and I just could have breasted my cards and skipped the whole process of saying that. And so you got to learn these things. You got to understand these concepts of leading people. Leading people is, people always say they're a leader, and here's what I tell them. Go pick an idea out of your head to go do something in the city. And then start to walk that dream that you want to do. Take a look behind you and see if anyone's following you. If there's nobody out there, you're actually not a leader. You're just taking a walk. I have looked behind me sometimes and I go, my Lord God, where are the people? Don't they know that I am the great Savior? And God's saying, man, don't you know I need you to start learning how to walk and talk the walk? Oh, this isn't about people. This is about me? Okay, I get it now. I get it, God. This is about me. What do I always say, gentlemen, ladies in our church? If I'm preaching it, I'm going through it. That doesn't always mean that, by the way. That's just I'm telling you right now. It's I'm going through it, so I'm revisiting things with David. I love when I have that because when I say that, and then if I ever talk about immorality, people are like, oh, Bishop, did you do something? Do we need to talk? So I want to make sure I stress that when my wife's talking about something spiritually, it doesn't mean she's hating me. People always jump to conclusions. But in this respect, I'm looking at David and my current situation that we're going through in our ministry. And here's what's interesting. Um, we started this. Jonathan's Refuge has been a dream of mine my whole life, since I was 7 years old. I've been working on building it. I've tried two different times and it wasn't the proper time, and nobody was behind me. And so it didn't succeed. And I just kept refining it, doing my thing in the world, and then all of a sudden tried it again, and then it wasn't the time either. And again, it did. I just had to hold off. It's the right time, the right place, and I finally was ready. I had to be ready. See, David had to be ready. Now, I have run $100 million a year budget in a company. Not a, I haven't run a billion. I've been involved as an executive vice president of $1 billion, publicly traded company, but personally responsible for $100 million a year in sales and my budget. So I can tell you how to get to that. Above that, I have to now work with my friends that I'm working with to teach me how is the mindset of a billionaire because I don't know how to get to that part. So teach me that step because I want to take the first private practice of our mental health firm to become $1 billion firm private practice because our place has changed in the world. We're taking and we got people who have been diagnosed to do nothing but sit in the house and play video games. They're out actually getting jobs, looking for how do they get their house, how do they get a career, how do they get married. These guys had no future in some respects because people in our world told them you're not worthy to succeed in life. Maybe it's because of what they did. Maybe it's because they're different. There's a lot of reasons. Now, here's what's interesting. David, he had to go through this process. Well, I did too. So I come out of a tough situation and I get a chance to run a men's home for an organization that ended up being a crooked organization. And I found out real fast. And I ended up actually working with the government and trying to get them to realize this guy's a dirtbag in the Department of Corrections and other organizations. And no one was listening to me. And finally, I had to walk away from part of it, and I did. And that guy went down. Now, I refer to that as in the respect of the time in my life of running these men's homes for the last 5 years, that was my cave of Adullam. I was living in there, in the home, with the men, my guys. I was not just running it, I had 3 jobs because that was back when I was building this company with my partner, Cynthia, who at the time was not my wife, and then became my wife. So then there's me and my wife, and I'm in this cave, and I'm with strong men like David, and we're trying to figure it all out. And I'm praying to God, and I'm saying, Lord, just let me get a deal, Lord. Let me make a $500 million real quick, and I just can build this thing overnight. I got the blueprint right here. I've been working on this, folks, my whole life. I literally have stacks of papers of this been written out, the dream, I saw it laid out 20 years ago, 10 years ago. It just keeps, and then all of a sudden you look at it now, and I can talk about every part of it, and you can just say, JB, what part of this? And I can tell you. And now people have heard it so many times, they're now able to do it for me. And that's beautiful that our message is getting out there and we're changing the world. And so Saul died, right? And in my case, the other guy went to prison, and I had a chance to step up. And so I had those men in my life, and we started the Jonathan's Refuge, the first one. And now the studio we're in is actually now going to be the second refuge. And this one is going to be called the Extraordinary Men's Home of Hope, because it is not for disabled people, because they say I'm disabled, but I refuse to be labeled disabled. I am an extraordinary gentleman. So this is going to be the Extraordinary Gentleman's Home of Hope, and another church for our region here in Snohomish County. And we had to come here first. I had to come here first because even though in my head I understand how to do the men's home and I'm qualified, I got all the certificates, folks. I've been a pastor before I was a bishop. I was a pastor before I was a pastor. I was a counselor. As a minister, my family has been in some of the biggest churches in this country. We had men's homes all over. California, Washington, Maine, Georgia, Kansas, New Jersey. I've seen them all. The clean and sober living ones, mixed living ones with husbands and wives, and 5 couples in a house, and I've seen it with families in the house, and I've seen every angle, the good, the bad, the ugly. So yeah, I actually am a really good expert in what I'm talking about. But again, times change. And so David went to Hebron because he needed to learn, and he couldn't just rule over 12 tribes yet. He hadn't even ruled one tribe. So that's why God gave that one tribe to him, the tribe of Judah. And he spent 7.5 years there. So he ruled and reigned and understood all the problems of the farmers and the battles between the borderlands of other tribes and other countries and things of that nature, and the disputes of land deals and people saying someone robbed me, and the king had to solve all those problems. So it wasn't like you see a king nowadays, like King Charles, who just sits in his throne room or whatever, hangs out in the palace all the time. No. They actually had to spend their day actually fixing everybody's problem in the kingdom, and then make trade deals with other families and other kingdoms. And so David goes there and he learns to do this on a smaller basis with one tribe. And then the big day comes. And after 7.5 years, he's ready. And all the other tribes, which is 11 more, total of 12, they said, we want you to be our king. And they made David the king of all Israel, all 12 tribes. And then he took and moved the capital from Hebron to Jerusalem in Israel. So that path, as I'm watching our organization transition, we're leaving Hebron and we're headed over to Zion. We're headed to Jerusalem. We're headed to something we've been working for a long time. But I couldn't get there, and I used to get so angry of, why do I have to be patient, Lord? Why? I am this and I am that. I am ready. You're not. That's what he said to me. You're not. What do you mean I'm not? I have run mega corporations. Handling a couple knuckleheads. We're talking 5 knuckleheads, Lord. I'm a knucklehead, by the way. That's not a derogatory. That's actually a compliment. If I refer to you as a knucklehead, that's a compliment. 5 knuckleheads, Lord, that's it. I got this. Nah, I didn't have a clue. Times are different. The cons are different. So see, I had to be in it. I had to serve someone else. And in that, I learned all the little nicks that I needed to know and update me on how the game's played in that world. And next thing you know, now, look at our organization. 0% recidivism rate. The whole country is starting to call us saying, how do you guys do it? And we're going to start publishing how, and we're going to start offering our services across the globe, because we have a solution to literally cut the prison system in your state, and we're doing it in ours, in half. And we're going to accomplish this. This is a huge feat. But right now, we just got the word that we're closing on this multi-million-dollar property of ours. It's currently $1 million, I should say. But it's the land that comes with it is an additional $2 to $4 million project that we're also developing simultaneously. So this is a multi-million-dollar transaction, and the headquarters and of our organization's headed there. And we're going to have a beautiful studio and a church sanctuary and everything. It's going to be some exciting stuff happening. But here's what I bring that up. You might be listening to this saying, yeah, but see, I'm already seasoned and I've already done all this stuff. This was 5 years ago when I'm referring to this, going through this time in my life. I'm 49. This is just 5 years ago. This isn't like I'm talking 20 years back. I'm talking just 5 years ago. So why didn't that big house come 5 years ago? Because I wasn't ready. Because my my partner, she wasn't ready. Because the first lady of this church wasn't ready. Because your bishop, the archbishop, me, wasn't ready. Because we, as an organization, weren't fully ready. And maybe me and my wife were the first to be ready, but we had to teach and train our team and lead them to be ready. Because what's coming next is then explosive growth. And I've been there. Now it's okay, I know this ground. But yet, am I ready? Yeah, we're ready. We're ready for the explosive growth. We have the dogs barking in the studio, by the way, so we forgive that. But we have the programs in place in our organization, like David did, and he learned how to do that in Hebron. And it took 7.5 years. The cave of Adullam, they believe it was some say 9 months to a year and a half, because they say that babies were born, and that took 9 months of the process. So because of that, people, no one's sure, but they believe David was probably a year and a half at the cave. And then he went to Hebron and ruled and reigned there as the king of Judah, so a small state of Israel. Not the small, actually, they're one of the biggest, but not the whole kingdom. And then after 7.5 years of laboring in the field, as they say, right, in the workforce, after 7.5 years of doing that, he picked up the knowledge he needed. And then he was ready for the show, the big show. Everybody wants to go be the NBA star. Everybody wants to go be the president of the United States. Everybody wants to be the boss. But nobody wants to be the janitor. You see my initials JB on my shirt. I am a Freemason. And rose through the ranks of that organization. I like this. I'm going to have him add something to it. I want it to say janitor. I told my wife, the first lady, I said, my title needs to be, it's janitor. And why is it janitor? I said, because I'm always cleaning up people's mess. I get the call when they're dying. I get the call when they're getting divorced. I get the call when they're running from the cops. I get the call when their families are imploding. I got to go clean up mess. In our company, my partner and me, what do? We're cleaning up messes. And here's the key as I close. Listen to this. Until you can be a great janitor, you will never even be a king. Because you have to rule and reign in your bedroom, cleaning it daily. I have people in my life that are in my organization that can't keep the room clean consistently. And I have that same people I have access to running multi-million-dollar companies, and the keys to those kingdoms are in my hand. And they don't get released if people can't do certain things. If you can't keep a clean house, how can I trust you with books of a multi-million-dollar organization? And people say, oh, but I can handle it. You can't. And you don't. And you shouldn't. And you won't. Be faithful to whom much is given, much is required. Be faithful in the little. If you're given a little tiny room to take care of, make sure that room is the most beautiful room you've ever seen. And I promise you it'll get noticed. And then your next promotion comes because of someone noticing what you did. That, my friends, is what we learned from David in this journey. I love you all so much. Sorry I went 3 minutes over, but this life and the transition of going from the caves after a year and a half to ruling a kingdom of Judah for 7.5 years, now he's ready to rule and reign in the big city over the whole state, the entire country of Israel, all 12 tribes, and lead them into a beautiful 40 years, by the way, 40 more, and that's next week's, and we'll talk about that. I love you all so much. My heart goes out to you. Please write us, email us, tell us what your prayer requests are. We are in lock. I mean, my wife and me, when you guys do reach out, one of our friends is going through some horrible transitions with her child, and as a person who's lost a child, it's not easy. I understand. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. So we want to be part of your life. So reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you. I love you guys. God bless you.